Well, you guys reached out to me and wanted to do a specific sort of small wave performance board for Israel. And so I felt what you guys were asking for. For me, it was really exciting because I really wanted to please you guys and create a board that the Israel market would be stoked on. The Secret has a pretty subtle entry rocker, I would say on the low side, but not as low as the original Happy. It's got more entry rocker than that. So it's pretty similar to the 2 Happy as far as the entry rocker. It's got kind of the classic Merrick engine between your feet. So a fairly straight spot in the rocker right there. And then it's got a break in the rocker just in front of the fins where there's also a break in the outline or the bump. You'll see on the Secret that bump in the outline, that Merrick hip is fairly distinct. So the rocker and the hip break together, which creates a pivot point for the board, both in the outline and in the rocker. And then it's got a fair amount of curve out the tail of the board. On the contour side, it's a single concave going into double concave within the single. And it's a pretty pronounced double concave. And what I found that has done for this particular rocker is really loosen it up rail to rail. You kind of get a ball bearing effect. It's also got sort of a real solid platform in the tail, meaning that there's a good amount of volume in the tail. It's a fairly wide tail block and it carries its fullness from the stringer out to the rail and all the way around the back of it. So it's like a really steady platform, but on top of this ball bearing feeling of double concave. So it creates this combination of really loose, but really solid, like really engaged, but really sensitive. Is what I found with the tail of the board with the concaves working in conjunction with the volume back there. And then the volume carries through the front of the board pretty generously under your chest, right? Because anytime that we're surfing small waves, paddling and getting into the wave and maintaining your planing speed as you're getting into the wave is important. So we do that with the volume that's under the chest. But you guys had requested a board with low sensitive rails. So it's got a thinner rail than say something like an OG Flyer or a Rocket Wide or the Sampler. The rail's more refined on this board and therefore more sensitive, but plenty of volume through the middle of the board. So those are kind of the basic characteristics of it. The fins are further back than any of those models that I mentioned, which I think creates again a really sort of strong pivot point in a board that rolls rail to rail easily. And a lot of that came about with my work with Parker, who really demands a board that rolls over like off the bottom and in the hook easily and quickly. He wants to go from his toe side to his heel side effortlessly. And I think some of that double concave in conjunction with the fin placement sort of works on this board in that way. You guys had requested that it have a more refined rail than the Sampler or some other boards had. So the rails are refined through the middle of the board. In other words, it's going to feel sexy under your hand. It's going to feel not boxy, not super full, but they are very round. It's a very soft rail on the bottom of the board. So it's very, very forgiving. All the way from the nose to about 20 inches up from the tail. It's a very, very soft, round rail. And then after that, about 20 inches from the tail is where your hard, sharp edge starts. And from that point back, the round rail begins to transfer into a square rail. And it's very square around the back of the tail block, which again just creates sort of that solid, flat space underneath your foot. And so I think for boards to be really sensitive toe to heel, a flat deck under your foot responds more quickly than a dome deck. That has more immediate feedback, and that works in conjunction with the fin placement. So that full square rail in the back is a function of having that very flat deck under your back foot.